Welcome to Lochaber Astro's channel. On this video I'm going to go through some PixInsight stuff. Initially I'm just going to run through my way I've set the icons out for the different processes, which is both in the form of my workflow, and then I'm going to run through actually processing an SHO image on there. So to start off with, you can see on the right hand side I've got my process icons laid out, and what I've done is divided them up into sections. So at the top here we've got everything that I'd go through when the images are in the linear stage. So dynamic crop to start off with. I've got background extraction and automatic background extraction on there, background neutralization, SPCC, linear fit, blur exterminator, and although this one says binning, it's actually the resample side there. I use it for just reducing the size of the images, just to make things run a little bit faster on my computer, especially if I'm not going to be using the full size of the image that the camera produces. When you're using these icons, you can name them whatever you want to. On this particular one, if you don't know how to create these icons, if you open up the process that you want to save, then take your new instance button and just bring it across into the center of the screen, let go, and it produces an icon, and it will be process whatever number is on there. Hold your mouse over the top of the icon and right click, and then you're looking for edit instance description. No, you're not. You're looking for set icon identifier. That's better. So the current identifier is process 39 on this, and I can change that to whatever I like. In my case I changed it to binning. Click OK. I've already got one there, so I go binning 02 just for this, and you can see it's changed to binning 02. Take that across and put it wherever I want to on this on the screen, and then I'll take that off of there because I don't need two of those in there. When you've lined them all up and spaced them out where you want them, you can come up to processes, look for process icons, save process icons, and you will save a small file in the PixInsight program file, which when you fire up PixInsight again, you'll see that all of these will be missing. So you just come up to process icons, or sorry, processes, process icons, load process icons, and it will take you through to where the file is, and just double click on the file, and you find that all of your process icons will come back. Moving on down to the next phase, so this is the linear one. Next we come to the stretch. So I've got STF, histogram transformation, and generalized hyperbolic stretch. I've started using this a lot more now. It's very good for pulling out deep detail and not overexposing things like stars. So it's worth giving that a try. Star exterminator's in there. So once I've stretched the image, then I remove the stars, and then I can move on to curves and start creating or increasing the image colors, etc. So going on from curves, I've put range selection mask in there because that can come in handy occasionally. SCNR is in there. Star reduction is actually morphological transformation. I've just named it star reduction to remind me what it's there for. Local histogram equalization I've in there. I did put it in there. It's a handy tool, although I don't use it that often these days. HDR multi-scale transformation is in there. Sharpen, again, is deconvolution. I use that for sharpening the stars, etc. If I use blur exterminator, then I tend not to use sharpen because they're doing roughly the same thing. Unsharpen mask I do use. Occasionally it can go a little bit too far, so sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. Just depends on the image that I'm working on. So by the time I get down to unsharpen mask, then that's pretty much the image complete in the workflow. The final thing that I do is noise exterminator. I used to use noise exterminator whilst the images were in their linear stage, but I found that working through some of the other processes, the processes themselves actually added noise into it or highlighted more noise in the background. So what I do now is I do all of the processes, and then the very last thing is to remove the noise. That for me works a lot better. It may do for you. It's just personal preference. The last thing after noise exterminator on the background image is pixel math, which I use to recombine the stars in the background, and then I use resample to resize the image to the final size that I want to publish. Below that there are pixel math scripts which are available for download. If I can find the links to them, I'll include them. But these four here are all for star reduction. Now that I'm using blur exterminator, I tend not to use these ones now, but there's 3 different methods. And these ones down the bottom here are colour masks, which come in very handy, and we'll be using one of those later. This final one down here is to actually blur one of the colour masks. And these 2 on the side here are for converting a one-shot colour image into HOO or SHO format. There's a manual way of doing it, but this does it for you, so it's quite handy if you want to go through those processes. So what I'm going to do now is run through a mono image, and I've got the 3 files already set up here. Just going to open those up and apply an STF stretch, auto stretch to them so that we can see them, and so that we can see all of them. There's a handy little thing on the Windows tab here, which is tile windows. Click on that and it spreads the images out so that you can see all 3 of them on the one screen. So this is basically how they've come out of after being stacked. They're all auto crop images, and so I don't need to use the dynamic crop tool on them. So the first thing I'm going to do is boost the STF stretch on each of them. This allows me to see whether there are any gradients at all, or just makes them more obvious. So then I can decide whether I'm going to use the background extraction or dynamic background extraction or the automatic background extraction tools. Just to let you see what I do with the automatic background extraction tool, which is what I use the most these days. If I pick the hydrogen image, actually first, before I do that, I'm just going to change the identifier on each of these images just to make it a little bit easier to see. You can see down here in the side of the image here, the green bar indicates that we're in the linear phase, or the image is in a linear state, but you've got this huge great title down here. So I'm just going to change the identifier and make it H8, and you see it's changed to H8. This is HOO3 and S2. So there we go. That makes life a little bit easier to see. So I'm going to open up the automatic background extraction tool, and you've got the three main areas of this tool. The top section here I'm going to leave exactly as default. I'm not going to change anything in there. In the interpolation and output, the function degree figure here defaults to 4. Now I'm going to change this down to 1, and I'm going to do correction type of subtraction, and I'm just going to tick discard background model and replace target image. And then I'm going to apply this to each of these images, and it won't take long to go through them. I'm done. And O3. This just removes the likelihood of any gradients at all. If you get to the stage where you do this first run and there's still gradients showing in there, then what I normally do is this function degree, I increase it to 2 and then run the process again, see what it's like, and if there's still some in there, some gradient in there, then increase it to 4 and run it a third time. By the time you got to the third process, then you should be where you want to be, and remove the gradients. If you haven't, then it might be worth coming back and just use the back button, take out the gradients, and maybe try function degree of 4 on the first run and see if that makes a difference. But going from 1, doubling up to 2, doubling up to 4, and that normally gets rid of any gradients that you want, that you've got in there. So that's that complete. You'll notice that these have changed slightly since we've done that. So what I'm going to do with each of these images, I remove the STF stretch and put it back on again. Go to that one, take off the STF stretch, put it back on again, and the same with that one. So I'm looking at the image as it actually is now. Now, because these are mono images, I'm not going to use background neutralization, and I'm not going to use SPCC. I am going to use linear fit. So for linear fit, I'm going to, because I'm going to do an SHO sulfur, hydrogen, oxygen image. I'm going to linear fit to the sulfur image, so that becomes my reference image, and then I run the process on the oxygen and the hydrogen. I'll just pause the video at this point and come back when that's finished. Save you sitting there looking at my whirly gig. So that's linear fit done on the oxygen and hydrogen alpha channels. The HA, the O3, I've already turned off the STF stretch and switched it back on again. This is the resulting one with the HA. Again, I'm just going to turn it back off and turn it back on again. That's linear fit. So now we come on to Blur Exterminator. The way I use Blur Exterminator is the stellar adjustments I leave as default, 0.25 with the sharpened stars, and star halos minus 0.15. If this was a galaxy image, then I tend to use automatic PSF, but it's not. This is nebulosity. So instead of sticking with a standard 3 or going with automatic, I find out what the PSF figure is for each of the 3 channels. To do this, I come up to scripts. To do this, I pick one of the images. So start off, all 3 of them have got to be done. So I'll start off with the oxygen channel, come up to scripts, render, and then PSF image. Open that up and you get this box here. All I use on here is Moffat, leave that one ticked, and just click evaluate. It will then scan the image, and once it's completed scanning, I'll come back and we'll look at the results. Sorry about that, forgot to switch the video off, or pause it anyway. Anyway, so that's how long it takes in my on my PC. Anyway, so you'll see from this that the figures we're looking at here are these two. Full width, half maximum on X and Y. So what I do with this is I take the two figures and I want to find something between the two. So 1.89 and 2.36. So I've got 1.89, 11. So between there and there is 47. So that's 0.47 between the two, and I divide that by 2. So 20, say 23. So what I want to do is add 0.23 to 1.89. So that's going to be 2. My brain's not working at the moment. So 2.12. I don't need that now. But I come to here, PSF diameter 2.12, and then set that going. This one actually doesn't take that long, so I shouldn't do. I'll pause it anyway and come back when it's finished. And there we go, that's that complete. If we zoom in on these, then you'll switch on the do and undo. You'll see the stars will just decrease that a little bit there. If there was nebulosity in there, then that would have sharpened up a little bit as well. So that's what we've accomplished with that. I'll just do pause the video here and come back when I've done the hydrogen and the sulfur. And we're back. So that's the HA and the ES2 that have now been and gone through the blur exterminator process. You also may note that the size has changed. Before I did these two, I used the resample on my binning tool just to reduce the size of these down by half, just so that it makes everything run a bit quicker. So the next thing we're going to do is move on to stretching. Now for stretching, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the standard histogram transformation tool and show you what I do with that. But before we do that, we'll just remove these. Right. I'm going to start off with the HA, bring up the histogram transformation tool, select the HA and open up preview window. So what I'm looking to do here is grab this, bring it across so that the histogram moves across there, and then I can zoom in on it a little bit, see where exactly we are. Take it up there, bring this across until we're in the top one here is about 25%. I'll bring it up a bit further shortly. But now I'm going to go to the black point. So that's the midpoint that I've been working on. And then go to the black point. I bring the black point across and darken things down. And what I'm looking for here is I'm looking to make sure that in this area here, this part of it remains at 0 as I go across. So if I zoom in further as I bring the black point across, I don't want to clip anything, so I bring it across until I start seeing numbers, and then move it back to so that they're just all 0, and that means that I'm not clipping any black point at all. Then I can grab the midpoint, bring that across and pull this back to the 25% mark. 25% is just about an average, and you can see everything's starting to come in now. There. That's about where I want to be, and apply that. Now it's gone the other way. Just reset the tool, and I could actually bring that black point across a bit more, because I can see now that it's been stretched, I can see that's where the first part of the data is on the histogram. If I bring it past that point, you'll see that these figures down here change. There you go. So I can bring it back to there, and that's me not, I've moved the black point so that I'm not clipping any data, but I'm making the image as dark as possible, and then I just submit that and then reset it. So that's about where I want to be with the HA. It's on the 25% line and the black point's good. So I could shut that down, move on to the sulfur, change it there, reset it, and open up a new one. Unfortunately, I'm already on this, I'm already zoomed in on it, so I can pull this across until I start seeing the numbers move again, and then back to 0. And I can zoom out until I can see the midpoint. There's the midpoint one, pull it across, and then zoom back in again and bring that up to 25%. There. Apply, reset, and I'm just about there, because if I move one, I get one. So that one's set correctly. This is just doing it very, very quickly. I would normally use GHS, but this gets it done quickly. Finally on to the oxygen. Again, pull the midpoint across, zoom in, pull the midpoint across to the 25%, move the black point up, apply, reset, and see there's still a lot of black point to get rid of there. Pull it to there, and then move this. If you move all of them to about the 25% mark, then you're not going to be far wrong. There. Apply that. And there we go. They all should be about the same. So that's the stretch done. Now, we've done the linear fit, we've done the stretch. The next thing to do before we remove the stars is channel combination. So for this, I haven't got the process in here. So I'm coming up to processes, all processes, LRGB combination. And I'm going to use all four of them. So I'm doing an SHO. So the first one, oops, sorry. No. For the luminance, I'm going to use the HA. For the red, sulfur, HA for the green, and oxygen for the blue. I'm also going to put on chrominance noise reduction as well, and then create a new image. I should quickly pull up something for us. There we go, nearly there. Yeah, so I can close that down. Now these other three images, I don't need to work on them anymore. So what I tend to do is pull them back down to the bottom. They're still on the screen, so I can work on them again if I need to. And then bring this one across. And because this is going to be my main image, I'll just open it up. Now for this one, you can see that there's a green cast on there, and if you zoom in on some of them, the stars are a bit on the magenta side. So first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that magenta. So coming down to scripts, utilities, correct magenta stars, and just execute that standard default settings. And there we go. Then when I zoom in on them again, stars are nice and white, not magenta coloured. You can also see that there's a slight green cast on there. So whilst the stars are still in there, I'm just going to pull up SCNR and remove 100% of the green. There we go. So now we've got that SHO or Hubble colour scheme. I can pull up the saturation slightly to enhance it. There we go, let's just pull it up a little bit there. So next thing I want to do is star extermination. So I'm going to just remove the stars. Hopefully that won't take too long, but I'll just pause the video until it's done and then come back to you. And there we go. So that's the stars extracted. First thing I'm going to do is actually work on the stars. I generally don't do too much with the stars themselves. Zoom in on them. There's colour's not too bad. Got a few different coloured ones in there, which is not quite nice. So with the curves on saturation, I'm just going to pull the saturation up a wee bit more. Apply that. And that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to do anything else with the stars. Don't need to. Put them out of the way. And then I can work on the background. So the nebulosity is a lot easier to see on here. And then open up a preview window. Just going to increase the saturation point again. A little bit too much there. Pull it back a wee bit. There we go. And then on RGBK, going to pull up the brightness. And bring down the darks. Not too much, just enough. Maybe pull up the brightness again. See what it's doing with these areas here. It's just highlighting them. If I pull it right back down, you can see the difference that it's making. There we go. If you want to, the mid-tones, you can pull those up as well. You can see what it does there. Just play around with the curve and see what you can come up with. You want to bring the darks right down the background, you can do. It gives a bit of a false colour there, so I'm not going to play too much with that. When you're happy with it, apply and then reset. Now that's all I'm going to do with those particular curves, but if you remember I said about these colour masks here, so I'm going to have a play with one of those. I'm going to bring the blue in the centre out a bit, make it a bit more prominent. So to do that, I want to make a mask of all of the blue area so that I can enhance just the blue and nothing else. A good way of doing this is to clone the main image. I'm going to bring that out, and then I'm going to highlight with the curves transformation. I'm going to highlight select the blue, and I'm going to bring the highlighted blue up, make it more blue, and the background stuff I'm going to reduce. So you see, put it right down. It's going to turn funny colours, but we're not worried about that. It's the main part of the blue that we're trying to pull out. So there we go. That will do. I want to go into green. That'll do. So that's fine. That's where we want to be. This is only a clone, so we're only playing with this. So with that selected, I come down to blue mask and pick and drag. And this is a pixel math calculation, so it's going to run through that, and it's going to highlight all the blues on a black and white image. You'll see what I mean. There you go. So that's just the blue in this clone image. So I've now finished with this clone image. I don't need it anymore. I can get rid of it. Yes, there we go. Now that is the mask for the blue in this image, and I'm going to blur it slightly. So I'm just going to take that and blur it. There we go. You could do it a second time if you want to. Just blur it a wee bit more, and then apply the mask to the image. Leave the mask on the screen. If you delete that, then the mask will drop off. So you need to leave the mask image on the screen. Now you can see the areas of blue that it's not highlighted in red here. The red means that it's masked out and you can't work on it. The blue in the middle there is the stuff that we want to work on. So I'm going to open curves again. Get a preview window up. Oops. Make sure you've selected the image that you want to work on. There we go. And I'm just going to increase. I've got the blue selected here, so I'm just going to increase the blue. And you see that coming up? Just making it more blue. And apply that, reset it, and what I might do is just bring up the brightness of the blue a little bit, and there we go. There, that'll do. Just very subtle. There we go, that'll do. Finished with curves, and remove the mask. Now all of these this dark nebula around here, there's a couple of ways that I can enhance that. I'm going to use HDR, multi-scale transformation, and I'm going to pick number of layers, 8, and try that one out. This is a case of experimenting with it. If you don't like it, roll it back, try a different number. Sometimes I look at it like that and think, no, that's horrible. So I take it out and I think, right, I'm not going to use HDR multi-scale transformation. I'm just going to highlight the black nebula, and again in utilities there is dark structures enhance script. So click on that, make sure that image 15 is the one that I'm working on, and I just leave everything as standard and click OK, and it will run through, and you should see a subtle change in the dark nebula here eventually. There we go. And if you can't spot it, I'll just zoom in and just go back and forwards. I don't know if you can see that, but there is a slight change in there. There. Just a very slight change. I'm not going to use sharpen with this, but I am going to use unsharpen mask. Again, it's already applied it, so I want to look at the main trunk structure here, and to do that I'm going to just highlight it. So I click on this little square on here, if you don't know about this one, and then you can just draw around it and it will resize. So you can see there's quite a lot of noise in the background here, but the trunk itself is actually quite well defined on these settings. The amount, what I normally do here is I change the amount, pull it back to say 60%, You can see the noise reduces. But I think on this one actually I'm going to pull it back to 70. 71 then. And the standard deviation is set at 2. You can increase it, which sharpens the image more, or you can decrease it, which makes it a bit more fuzzy. I tend to pull it out to about no more than 3 to enhance it, and then apply that. And then as soon as you've applied something, then it'll flick back to the original image. Now you notice that this is, although it's enhanced, it's sharpened it, sharpened all these aspects up, it's actually added quite a lot of noise in there. And like I was saying before, the last thing that I do before I finish the image is remove the noise. So that's what I'm going to do now. Noise exterminator. I don't want to remove all of the noise, so I don't like using the 90% on the denoise. Pull it back to, on this particular one it's quite noisy, I'm going to pull it back to 84%. I'll leave the detail at 0.15 or 15%, and then just apply that. And you'll notice that I'm applying the noise reduction just to the background, not to the stars. This one on my computer takes a wee bit of time, especially as I'm recording at the same time, so that takes up a few resources. So I'll just pause the video and come back when it's complete. Nearly complete, there we go, and you can see what a difference that's made. If I just zoom in again to the main trunk structure, and then just flick backwards and forwards, you can see what a difference that's made. But it's still left the detail in there, it's just removed all the noise. It's not added any stuff that's not there, it's just cleaned it up. That's that. So, don't need this blue mask anymore, so I'll get rid of that as well. Yes. And the final thing to do is add the stars back in. So there's a few different ways of doing this. I tend to create a new image, and you can use, I use the expression editor, and the simplest way is just to take image 5 plus image 15 plus image 15 stars, and apply that. There you go. There's your finished item with all the stars on it. There is another way of doing it, again using expression editor, which I was shown once. So we'll remove that, and you go squiggly line, bracket, bracket, squiggly line, image 15, close bracket, then you use the star above the 8 figure key as a multiplier, open bracket, squiggly line again, 15 star, image 15 stars, close bracket, and then close the final bracket, and that's your code for this one. And again, apply, and you'll see that when you compare the two, just take those away, you compare the two side by side, the stars in, when you just add them straight back in, are slightly more enhanced than what they are if I go back into this one. That's the same. See, there's more, the brighter in this one, the stars are slightly more subtle in this one. It's up to you. That's just two options that you can use for adding the stars back in. Slightly more subtle one, or just add the stars back as they are. The final one is resize, and for this select the image that you want. I'm going to do 22, image 22, and then width 1200, 1200 pixels, and then just apply, and there we go. It's actually applied it to number 21, but still. So if I go, that's 1 to 1, and that's nice and sharp, and then you can save that. Job done. Thanks for watching. Sorry it's taken best part of 55 minutes. I might remake this and do it again, but there we go. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks very much for watching. Hope it was useful to you.